So hi Sam, can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be showing us today?
Yeah, certainly. So my interest is in plant parasites, and particularly plant galls. So gall causes, there can be a variety of things in invertebrates and fungi. If it's invertebrates, they often hijack the plant's hormones basically to create a little house where the larvae can develop safely. They're often quite weird and wacky shapes. Leaf miners as well, so these tend to be fly or moth larvae that essentially eat through a leaf from the inside, so they often create little corridors or blotches on the leaf. And finally, I'm interested in pathogenic fungi in general, so those could be mildews, rusts, leaf spots, that sort of thing. So I'm just particularly looking for something not quite right on leaves or other parts of a plant.
Okay.
So one of the handy things about the Botanic Garden is that a lot of the trees, well most of the plants really, the planted ones, have got a label saying exactly what they are. And if you know the host, then that's often 99% of the way there to actually identifying the parasites on it. So this is quite a good example. So this tree here is called Manna Ash Fraxinus ornus, and there's a type of mite that causes galls on ash, and it creates these little sort of fuzzy looking growths. It's called Acerea fraxinivora, and there'll be loads of tiny little mites living in this structure here basically. It just creates really good shelter, probably a little microclimate as well where the mites can develop safely. This is a good example of a leaf miner. In this case it's a little micromoth caterpillar that's done it, and it's essentially burrowed its way through the leaf in the upper surface, and it's just left a tiny sort of really thin skin on the top, which makes it look kind of silvery, and it's a really cool way to eat your food plants whilst staying really protected in the mine. This particular mine is on hornbeam, so that's what this tree is, and the species is called Philoloricta esperella, and this is an example of a blotch mine or a tentiform mine it's called. Some other micromoths will form corridors, but this is one that forms a kind of blotch. This is just a nice example of a corridor mine. So before I showed you a blotch-like mine, and this is one that looks like a winding gallery or a corridor. And you might be able to see that there's a darker central line through it, and that's essentially the line of poo, which is politely called frass in leaf miner terms. And often these sorts of moths won't be picked up in moth traps. So looking for leaf mines is a really good way to discover a kind of hidden aspect of the biodiversity of a location. So this is a type of microfungus that attacks living plants, and this particular one is called Golovinomyces depressus, and it's attacking this plant here, which is called burdock.
So is it true that native trees have more parasites on them than non-native trees?
Yeah, that generally tends to be the case, and it's quite clear to see in the Botanic Garden because it's got a good mixture of native and non-native species, including trees. But here we've got a hazel. It's our native hazel, Corylus avellana, and even this single tree, I've so far counted, I think, at least 3 leaf miners on it. And there are potentially many more, and that tends to be the case with native trees. They've had time to co-evolve with their parasites in the UK, and often those parasites have become quite diverse on that particular host. Whereas a non-native tree, they tend to have far fewer parasites associated with them. If you do find a gall or a leaf miner on one of the various exotic trees in the garden, then chances are it's something quite unusual, and potentially it could be new to the country, But yeah, if you're going for diversity of parasites, then take a look at the native trees and herbaceous plants.